Good morning, kids. It's Mr. AG again, and your reading assignment for today, Thursday, April 16th, is pages 28, 29, and 30 in your reading packet. And 28 and 29 are primarily for your parents or whoever is working with you on your reading. It basically gives 3 tools for helping to teach the concept of determining the central message in stories that you read. I'll just read the first sentence up here just to kind of get an idea of what this is all about. So determine message, lesson, or moral. An important part of reading development is recognizing that a story is likely to convey a message or lesson and learning how to read closely to determine it. So they give 3 different ways to teach it. Analyze a stated message, lesson, or moral. So like in a fable, usually the message or the lesson is actually stated in the text. And then the second way is determine an unstated message, lesson, or moral. So sometimes you just kind of have to figure it out. And there are tips and tricks that you can use to figure it out. And the third way that they give is to convey a message, lesson, or moral connecting to writing. So actually you write and flesh out details about what the moral of a story is and why that's the moral, which is kind of what your task is for today. And it gives your parents a little graphic organizer to check for understanding when they observe you having difficulty identifying an unstated moral and what to do in that case. Now, my focus is going to be on giving you a story to use this message, lesson, or moral chart. So today what I'm going to do for you is read to you a story, and I'd like for you to use that story to complete this graphic organizer. So the big idea is you're going to come up with 3 details from the story that support a message, lesson, or moral that you get from the story. So in this bottom box here, you can see the arrows from the details coming down to the message, lesson, or moral. So it's like you're stating the big idea, and then you're stating 3 support details from the text that go directly with the message that you think the book has. So the book that I'm going to read is called Anansi Finds a Fool. And it is an African trickster tale. You've probably heard several of these Anansi stories. And if you haven't, I suggest you check them out. They're very, very interesting. Anansi Finds a Fool, an Ashanti Tale by Verna Ardema, and pictures by Brenna Waldman. The author says, to my grandson, Damian Bullis, who likes to go fishing, and the illustrator for Nicole and Chato, who have taught me a great deal. Thanks. So these trickster tales often have a message that sort of, if you follow them and use them as an example in your life, they are good for you. In West Africa, there once lived a man named Anansi. He was greedy and lazy and always up to some trick. One morning, he announced to Aso, his wife, that he was going into the fishing business. Aso said, one of my ears has heard. There remains the other. Anansi chuckled. Ha ha ha, he said. I'm going to find a fool for a partner, someone who will do all the work, while I get all the fish. Ha, said Aso. Where will you find such a fool? She put her water jar on her head and set out for the river. At the riverside, Aso met Lalua, the wife of Bansu. Lalua asked, "Are you well?" "I am quite well," said Aso. "It's that husband of mine. He said he's going into the fishing business, and he's going to find a fool to help him, someone who will do all the work while he gets all the fish." Lalua went home and told Bansu what Aso had said. Bansu thought about that for a small time. Then he said, "I'll go fishing with Anansi. I will beat him at his own game." Bansu went to Anansi's house. He said, "Anansi, I'll go fishing with you. Two can catch fish better than one." Anansi was surprised at Bansu's offer, and a little uncomfortable too. Bansu would not be easy to trick. But he said, "All right, first we will have to make a fish trap." Anansi and Bansu went looking for material for the trap. They found some raffia palms, and Bansu said, "Anansi, give me the knife. I'll cut the branches, and your part will be to get tired for me." "Hold it, man," cried Anansi. "Why should I get tired for you?" "When work is being done, someone has to get tired," said Bansu. "If I cut the branches, the least you can do is to take the weariness." Anansi said, "The tiredness is the worst part. I'll do the cutting myself, and you must get tired from me." So Anansi climbed the raffia palm and began slashing off the fronds. Bansu sat nearby, and every time Anansi chopped, Bansu grunted, "Kra! Kra! Kra!" Soon there was a great pile of material cut. Then Bansu said, "Now you sit down, Anansi. I'll make the trap. Sore fingers and an aching back is what I'll get, but I will do the work if you will suffer for me." "Hold it, man," said Anansi. "You are doing fine taking the misery. I'll make the fish trap myself." While Anansi worked, Bansu suffered. He wiped his brow, rubbed his back, and moaned, "Do, do, do." Bansu's fussing was such a diversion that Anansi forgot his own discomfort. By weaving and tying, he finally finished the trap. "What a fine fish trap!" exclaimed Bansu as he balanced it on his head. "If we meet any people on the way to the river, they will think I made it." "Wait!" cried Anansi. "Why should you get the credit for my work?" And he pulled the trap off Bansu's head and put it on his own. When the two reached the riverside, Bansu said, "Anansi, there are crocodiles in the river. Let me set the trap. If I get a leg bitten off, you can die for me." "Hold it, man," cried Anansi. "Do you take me for a fool? I'll plant the trap myself. If a crocodile gets me, you can die for me." Anansi carried the trap into a patch of water reeds near the shore. As he was tying it to a reed stem near the bottom of the river, his groping hand disturbed a crayfish. Then, cap! A huge claw clamped onto his little finger. "Wah!" yelled Anansi as he came splashing out of the water, the crayfish dangling from his hand like a fish at the end of a fish pole. Bansu pried the claw off Anansi's finger. Then he said, "This is the biggest crayfish I have ever seen. It will make a fine meal for you and Aso. You take it," said Anansi, as he wrapped a leaf around his bleeding finger. "I'll get whatever is in the trap in the morning." When Lalua saw the fine crayfish that Bansu had brought, she clapped her hands, and immediately she put the kettle onto a boil. When Anansi arrived home, Aso said, "Well, how did it go?" "How did what go?" asked Anansi. He was not anxious to tell her anything. "The fishing business," said Aso. Anansi said, "The trap is in the water, and whatever is in it in the morning will be all ours." The next morning, as soon as the darkness was torn aside, Anansi and Bansu went to look at their fish trap. As they reached the riverside, they saw that the reeds around the trap were agitated. The two ran killy-willy down the bank into the river. They closed the large end of the trap and dragged it out of the water. It was heavy, full of something big and black and coiled. They set it down hastily and backed away. Then, brup! The flap on the trap burst open, and out slithered a huge python. Its body was a series of humps and bumps. "Look!" cried Bansu. "That snake has swallowed your fish! Count them!" Anansi counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, and by that time the python had dragged its loaded body, goo-boo-doo, back into the river. Anansi said, "Bansu, you can't count that as my turn. I'll have whatever comes into the trap next, and we'll stay right here and watch." The two men put the trap back into the river. Time passed, time passed, time passed. At last they heard the swap of a fish jumping in the water. Suddenly, swap, swap, swap. The river was full of apopokiki fish, leaping in and out of the water, all heading upstream. Anansi jumped up and began yelling to the fish, "Into the trap! Go into the trap!" "A crocodile is chasing them," cried Bansu. Then whoosh! The fish trap rose up out of the water, spilling fish and revealing the head of a crocodile inside it. The crocodile thrashed this way and that, trying to shake off the frightening hat. Then it came lumbering up out of the water. Anansi shinnied up one tree and Bansu another. From the trees, they watched the crocodile bash their trap against the ground. Back-attack! Back-attack! Finally, it fell away, and the crocodile sashayed back into the water and streaked off after the school of Apopokiki. Anansi and Bansu climbed down and examined the trap. Bansu said, "Sorry, my friend. The trap is finished, but it still does not look too bad. I think I shall take it to the market and sell it." "Hold it, man," said Anansi. "I didn't get one lone fish from this fishing business, not even a crayfish. And now you want to take the trap away from me? I'll take it and sell it myself." Anansi took the trap to the market. He sat down beside it and called out, "Fish trap for sale! Fish trap for sale!" People saw that the trap was badly broken. They told the headman of the village. The headman went to Anansi and said, "Do you think that my people are so ignorant that they will buy a good-for-nothing fish trap? You insult us." Then he made Anansi put the trap on his head and walk through the market, crying, "No good fish trap for sale! No good fish trap for sale!" Anansi's eyes died for shame. The people howled with laughter, and children followed him, shouting, "Na! Na! Na!" When it was over, Bansu came to him and said, "Anansi, you were looking for a fool to go fishing with. You didn't have far to look. You were the fool yourself." Anansi said, "But, Bansu, what kind of a partner were you? When all of those people were making fun of me, at least you should have taken the shame." The next morning, Aso and Lalua met again at the river. They saw the flattened water reeds and the trampled shore, the aftermath of their husband's fishing business. And when Lalua told Aso how Bansu had tricked Anansi into doing all the work, Aso laughed so hard the water jar slipped off her head. As she caught it, Aso said, "It's a true saying, when you dig a hole for someone else, you will fall into it yourself." And that is the end of the story. Anansi finds a fool. And I would like for your work today to be to fill out this chart, the message, lesson, or moral chart with 3 details from the text and the message, lesson, or moral from the text. Anansi finds a fool. Hope you have a good day. I'm really looking forward to seeing you at our class Zoom today. And be on the lookout for our next lessons at the beginning of next week.